Hello, this is Neena Perez at Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. We are here to give you resources, tools, tips, and to discuss life topics, and hopefully to give you topics that'll transform and challenge your thinking. So today I wanted to introduce somebody who I have been reading about and am in love with. Her name is Nathalie Jacob, and she wrote this amazing book, Rediscovering Life After a Brain Tumor. It's 8. See that? You need to go get it because it's good. So Nathalie Jacob was raised in Colombia, went to high school in France, and later moved to the United States. She is trilingual. She beat me. She's English, Spanish, and French, right? And I wanted to thank you so much for wanting to come on here and talk to me. So I'm going to take you through step by step. I want people to get to know you a little bit and what you've gone through and where you are now and why they need to pick this up because this is a really good book. So thank you for coming. Thank you.
No, thank you, Neena,
thank you
so much. It's really an honor to be here.
And so it's really nice to meet you. So I wanted you to just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself. So, you know, like where we were before 8. You know, and let's transition into where we are now.
Okay, so I've had a really interesting life, I think. I come from a very international background. So my mother is Puerto Rican, like yours. And my father is French, 100%. And so they met in BU and they went for work to Colombia. Okay. So I was born in Colombia.
Right.
But to a very international family. So like my culture per se is very international because in my household, for example, we ate French food. We don't have really any Colombian traditions. We have, for Christmas, what we listened was Puerto Rican salsa.
Right.
You know, so it was a really international household.
Right.
And I wanted to build an international future for myself. So I started, I left my house when I was young at 15 because I wanted to go and learn French. So French. So I went to live in Paris, and that's where I learned French, actually. And then after that, I came back and I did study the college in Colombia. And then I started to work in marketing. And I discovered that my passion was marketing when I did an Erasmus in the Netherlands, in Maastricht.
Oh, wow. You have been around.
Yes, I've been around a lot. And then, so after realizing that was my passion, I came back to Colombia and I started to work in Frito-Lay, which is a part of the PepsiCo group in marketing. And then
that was in Colombia?
That was based out of Colombia at that time. And that was my first job really out of college. And after that, I went to Nokia.
Nice.
For the people that still know what that is.
Yeah, I do know what that is.
When Nokia was Apple. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. It's so funny.
So, you know, now it's called disconnecting people versus connecting people.
Yeah.
And then I literally looked at that. I knew I wanted to do an MBA. I didn't really know when or where, so I just Googled. Back then there was no Google, but I researched top 10 MBAs in the world, and I picked the city where I wanted to live.
Okay.
Within that top 10 MBAs, and Madrid, which I really wanted to live in, is where I decided to do my MBA at IE Business School because it was the 8th best MBA in the world at that time, and it's still now. So I went to live to Madrid, and once I graduated from my MBA, I stayed working in L'Oreal in Madrid. And after that, I got an offer from Johnson & Johnson based in Puerto Rico. And who does not want to live in the Caribbean? So I, of course, left Spain. Right. And I went to work with Johnson & Johnson based out of San Juan, but for the Caribbean islands and Central America. And after that, I went to work for Diageo, which is a British company. It's the biggest spirits company in the world. So they own and produce and market brands like Johnny Walker, Baileys, Tanqueray, Smirnoff, Guinness, etc.
Good stuff. I got it.
All the fun stuff. I love the names of the meetings. It's like, oh my God, I'm late for my tequila meeting, and it was 9 a.m., right? So that was fun. And that's where I actually met my husband.
Oh, okay.
He worked for Diageo in the UK. And he moved with Diageo to Puerto Rico, and that's where I actually met him.
So you worked at Diageo in Puerto Rico?
I worked in Diageo, based out of Puerto Rico. And then my husband got moved or changed his role to another role within Diageo, but in Miami. So we moved into Miami together to continue my life, the travel.
Okay, good.
And there I changed to another, and that was my last company actually called Millicom, which is to explain a bit to the U.S. Public. It's like an Optimum or like an AT&T mobile devices and TV and internet sort of a company. but their main strategy is to focus on countries in development.
Okay.
So they're very big in Africa, and they're very big in Latin America and in Central America, but they're not at all like in the US or in...
Well, it was saturated here, so they probably want to go.
There's enough.
That makes sense.
And that was my last job, and that was back in 2015.
Okay,
so
that's
some
recent.
time ago.
That's not that far, right? It's only like 4 years, right?
Yeah,
so
it's only 4 years ago, but it feels like 100 years
I
in
bet
my
it does.
lifetime.
Well, you've been through a lot, right? So you have a really remarkable story. I read something, I think it was on your site, where it says, imagine only seeing a single number. Everywhere you look, all you can see is 8. You can't spell your name. You can only draw a circle. You can't add 2 plus 3. And this was your story, right? Life after what we're going to get into now, right? Which was this invasive brain surgery that you went through. And so what I wanted to know is, you know, I wanted to find out how you even found out that you had to have, that you had a tumor, right? That you had this tumor that you had to go through surgery for. I was reading your book, and you were very active as well. Like you did a lot. Was it rowing that you did, or
sailing?
Sailing,
yes.
Sailing. I'm like, wow, you were very adventurous. So you had, you know, you had a lot of spunk in you. You did a lot of things. I think you did skiing too, right?
I did. I did a lot.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, you know, were you doing some of these extreme sports or something when you found this out, or did you just not feel well, or how did this all come about?
So I went on vacations with some friends from Melicum, and we went skiing to Whistler, and it had not snowed in 2 weeks, so the slopes were complete ice. There was barely any snow. And I was going, as you said, I love sports, and I loved speed. I was a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Right.
And I was going down the slopes a little bit kamikaze, like I like to ski. And I had no helmet, which was a good thing, actually. Because you know, the first day you're full of energy, nothing hurts. And like maybe after skiing half a day, I fell really hard. And I was tumbling down the slopes, and it was so hard, I actually had to like stay low in the floor for some good 10 minutes, because I couldn't even stand up of the pain, and it was so hard I even broke my goggles.
Wow.
And anyway, and immediately I got my finger absolutely bruised. It was black. But you know, it was the first day. I stood up again and I continued skiing, because I was not going to ruin my vacations.
Of course not.
Of course.
Why would you ruin your vacation with a broken finger?
So I sort of self-fixed the problem, because I wasn't worried about my brain or anything. I was just worried about my finger. So I bought a popsicle stick, some tape, I wrapped it around, and I continued skiing. And then when I went back to Miami, there I did go to check my finger, not my brain, just my finger.
Because it was probably still black, right?
It was still very, very black. And I could move it, so I knew I hadn't broken it, but it was
something
really,
happened.
really
Yeah,
black.
wow.
So I went to the first emergency care, like beside my house, and they said, well, nothing happened. They asked me questions like, did you throw up? Did you lose conscience? And I said no to anything. So they were like, okay, but just in case, they got a CT scan. So, and nothing happened with my finger, actually.
Okay.
So my finger was fine. Thanks for asking.
Good.
And so they checked, and they said, well, nothing happened with the fall, but you do have something that you do need to check. So it's not an emergency, so we don't take care of you here in the emergency care, but do take an appointment with a neurosurgeon and go and see a doctor. So I took the appointment with the neurosurgeon, and that was like, maybe they gave me the appointment like in a week's time. And when I went to him, that was the first and last time I saw him, actually, before I had to have brain surgery.
Wow, so it was something that was more serious then.
So it wasn't, meaning that first appointment that I had with my neurosurgeon in Miami, he was so relaxed. And he didn't even use the words brain tumor. He just said, you have an intraventricular meningioma. And I went with my husband to this appointment, and that really didn't mean anything to us. I mean, we don't know what that is, but I think the words brain tumor are a bit more
aggressive,
and scary. So we never really realized what it was, and it took us so much by surprise. We didn't really even like Google what it was, because he was so relaxed about it. He was like, look, don't worry, it's a super simple surgery. It'll take 2 hours, from 2 to 4 hours maximum. The time of recovery is only 3 weeks. And we asked about the pain. We were kind of scared about the pain, and he said, no worries, actually the brain's one of the less painful surgeries because there's not that many pain.
Okay.
I don't know how you
like
call
nerve
it.
endings or
Yes,
whatever.
nerve endings. So, so I was really relaxed, and my husband was with me, and he was very relaxed as well. I mean, we were nervous, but we never, like, no extreme thought went through my mind. Like, I never thought death. I never thought any of this. I was just relaxed because he said, so we obviously asked about the risks, right? And he said the only risk is a 2% chance of losing your peripheral eyesight. And I mean, 2%, that's nothing, right? So we were really relaxed. So we went back home. We did call my parents. They actually understood the gravity of the situation, so they were not relaxed, and they were not having, you know, laughs about this. But even that didn't make us nervous at all. And he did say he recommended having the surgery as soon as possible. And the surgery was 2 weeks after that first and only appointment with my doctor. And but honestly, those 2 weeks, I was very relaxed as well, because I had to hand in my job for those 2 weeks. You know, I was just preparing, handing stuff to my boss. It was like my parents came over from Colombia to visit me in Miami, and we were just happy to see them. So we were just going for dinner and having champagne, and we were just enjoying the time. I was really not nervous or anxious at all.
So the bump and the falling was actually like a uncovering of this thing, right?
It was a very, very good bad luck.
Very, very good bad luck.
Very good.
That's a good way to put it, right?
If I wouldn't have fallen,
you would have never went.
And actually not having a helmet in that precise moment. I mean, after that fall, that same day I went and I bought a helmet. But at that moment, it really helped, because if I would have had a helmet in that appointment, I would have said, I mean, I wouldn't even had my head, so I wouldn't have even had my brain checked.
So they would have thought you were protecting.
It is a very good bad luck.
That is something else, right? So now that you found out about the surgery, you're going in for surgery, and it's 2 weeks later, right? So now you're ready for your surgery. That has to be a little bit nerve-wracking, right? I mean, you are going into surgery. You know, what was that like? I mean, what was that? Was it longer than they thought it was going to take? Did they do it pretty quickly? Like, how did that go for you? The actual procedure and coming out of that? It
was the 2 hours that my doctor said.
Oh, it was okay. So it didn't take longer than expected.
It did not take longer than expected, and I don't know the medical reasons why it was so easy. I would imagine it's difficult to get in. Maybe I don't know, but it was what was a big surprise is that when I come out of the surgery after only 2 hours, and as you said at the beginning, I speak 3 languages, right? So I speak French, English, and Spanish. Now baby language too, so 4 languages. And I wake up from the surgery, and I cannot read, and I cannot write, and I cannot add 2 + 2.
So
and that was shocking.
I bet it was. And I mean, I read somewhere in your book where you were saying that you almost like laughed uncontrollably, right? Like,
I found it hilarious.
Yeah, like you were like, I can't read or write. I started laughing. I'm like, okay. Yeah, there was definitely some brain stuff going on there.
But it was hilarious. I mean, imagine you go into a 2-hour surgery. You can still speak your 3 languages. Yeah, you can't read or write. So, you know, I was 34 years old at that time, and I'm thinking, my gosh, I have an MBA, I'm 34, and I can't read or write. And I find it so funny because I know I'm conscious. You know, and I never thought it was going to be something permanent. So I always thought it was going to be something temporary. So I just thought it was hilarious, and I enjoyed it so much. It was actually very special. Because I obviously had my family around me as well, and it was very special because then it wasn't a choice, but I enjoyed this time. If I wouldn't have seen it this way, probably would have freaked out. Probably would have stressed completely out. You know, like I could have lived the same reality in 2 very different ways. In a tragic way.
This is true.
In an amazing and fun way, and I was having a blast. I really loved it.
That is so not 2 words you find together, you know, brain surgery and blast don't usually go hand in hand. That is hilarious. So I know that when you woke up, and it's the reason for the title of your book, right? So I wanted you to talk about the 8 because I thought that was really interesting.
So when I wake up, you know how the brain manages everything, right? Not only your IQ, your eyesight, and also your physical movements.
Right.
So they make me walk the corridors of the hospital just to make sure that I'm fine physically. And so they ask me, so what number is on that door? I'm like, 8. And so they take me to the next door and they ask me, so what number is that one? I'm like, 8. And so on to the next door, I'm like, 8. And then they ask me what year I was born. I'm like, 1800s. And what year are we on right now? I'm like, 1980. And they ask me, so what's your pain level from 1 to 10? 8. They have to actually put like happy faces.
Interesting.
Everything was an 8. And I do not know, I will never know why.
Now, were you conscious that you were saying 8 for everything?
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I saw.
Right.
It was an 8. So I never thought it was a weird coincidence.
Right. For you, that's what it was.
That was my reality at that time.
Right, wow.
And so obviously for my family, they were absolutely shocked.
Right. Well, because they're seeing other numbers and you're seeing 8.
Yeah, and they were not, and they also never were told about this possible side effect, right? So it was, they were shocked. My husband was absolutely shocked as well. But no, for me it was very special actually, that new reality. And the time in the hospital was nice. Obviously, I was always enjoying the morphine. That was really nice. I understand why it's illegal.
Right.
I was never expecting that to be so fun. And then when I go home, I rediscover a life that was also absolutely special. So my brain became a toddler's brain. And it was gorgeous. It was reliving a life just so simple.
Wow.
But simply precious, innocent, right? So I started walking. This took me a long time to start to walk, for example, the streets.
Okay. Were you out of balance? Is that why? Or?
No. So remember that 2% chance of maybe losing my peripheral eyesight?
Gotcha. Yeah. When
I wake up, I had lost it.
Oh my gosh.
But the doctor said there's a probability of it coming back in the first 3 months. So I was not worried about it. But I was partially blind, and so in my house and everything, I couldn't walk anywhere without falling, hitting a wall, a door. I mean, breaking everything. You're partially blind, so you don't see half of your world.
Right.
And so to explain to you how I see right now, because actually that 2% chance of becoming forever permanent, I did nail that Murphy's Law, and I am partially blind, and I'll be partially blind for the rest of my life. So if I look at you straight, I can only see half of your face.
Okay.
So I only see the left eye.
Okay.
And it's with my both eyes. You know how eyes are so to start, it's not the eyes, it's the brain that it doesn't recognize that it sees.
Got it.
I see 20/20, but the brain doesn't recognize that I can see. So I only see half of you. So I don't see anything from, basically I don't see half.
Right.
So if I look at a TV, I only see half of the screen. If I look at a computer screen, I only see half of the computer screen.
Right.
And the blindness moves me. So if I move my eyes, well, where I look now, I still see half of it from where I'm looking right now. So anyway, I forgot where we were going. I'm sorry.
No, we were talking about like how that has changed your life and
yes. Yeah. So the innocence. So I couldn't walk alone because while I learned how to manage my eyesight, somebody would walk with me. So my husband would walk with me around the block, for example, and I would go out and I would hear a bird, and I'd be like, birdie, 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 like a toddler, just enjoying the sounds of nature. Or people would come and visit me. I would call them like the normal adult visit, and all of them would sit on a couch and having a normal adult conversation, but it was so complex for me to understand that I would literally just say like, hi, and I would go to a corner and color, coloring books like a toddler, and I would enjoy it so much. It was really special.
It's something because you also still knew your 3 languages, so it was an adult but almost reliving some parts, right?
Exactly.
It's really quite interesting.
A lot of things that are totally unexpected. Like, for example, you know how we know as adults, we know to lie and we know how to be hypocrites.
Right.
Toddlers don't. And that's why they're so honest.
Right.
That's another thing that happened. I was such a toddler. I was absolutely honest.
Right.
When somebody called me that I didn't want to speak with, I did not have the brain power to say I don't want to, and invent an excuse. I'd be like, I don't want to speak to you, bye, and I would just hang up. It was very
it's actually
sweet.
kind of refreshing too.
Yes, and surprising.
Yeah.
I would never expect it at all. This is the brain at the end.
Right.
All this from my brain. So, so those, let's say, first months were very special. But then little by little, reality started to kick in.
I was just about to ask you, how did you, manage coming up against the reality or the feeling of maybe a little bit of despair or frustration, right? Because in the beginning there is a sense of this too shall pass, right? But when it lasts for a little long, you're like, wait a minute, this is not passing. Now, how do you keep yourself from getting like a despair from it? Is there something that you do about that, or do you kind of just deal with your what's coming at you one thing at a time?
Well, I think at that moment, I think it's two different ways of dealing. Like the present moment, at those 2 years and a half, 3 years of therapy, we're just going one day at a time. Like I never expected not to recover.
Right.
So I thought it was just temporary. Right. So I knew I had to do therapy, obviously, because I had to learn how to read and write and add again.
Right, wow.
So I did hours and hours and hours and hours of therapy. So to respond to your question, at the beginning, it was just one day at a time with no stress, because I thought it was just part of the homework. In my present now, it's different when I realized that I could not recover. Right. In many aspects. That was very hard for me.
Yeah.
When as I call it, when I had to like mourn the death of my brain.
Right.
When I actually had to accept that
it's all different.
It is all different now.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it was just being stubborn. Yeah. And how people use the word resilience as of how to define this.
Yeah.
But you can, if you're stubborn enough.
Yeah.
Stubborn becomes resilience.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think when you're in a simple mind, it's just being stubborn, and just you do your homework one day, and you do it the next day, and you do it the next, and you do it in 1 week, and you do it a month, and you do it in a year, and you do it years until you learn how to read and write again.
Yeah. And so you taught yourself how to read and write again? You
did.
Got back to that?
I did. I obviously went to therapy.
Yeah. So then you see, so the 8 thing, that stopped for you? Like now you actually can see the alphabet. And I can. Well,
I wrote a book.
Yes, I know.
So yes, I now can read and write. I read very slowly though, because of my partial blindness.
Yeah, of course.
I can't read the whole word. I can only see half of the first letter.
Right.
So I read very slow.
Yeah.
But I did recover that. What was very difficult for me was losing my IQ. As I told you at the beginning, I was always a workaholic. That was my passion, number 1. My passion number 2 was sailing. And obviously being partially blind, unless I want to sink the boats around me, it's not really a really wise thing to do.
No, it's not wise.
No. But the part of losing the capability of working is very difficult, because it's when you've maintained yourself all your life, and when you've been independent, when I've used work not only as a salary, but a way of life.
Yeah.
You know, everywhere I've lived has been because of work.
Yeah.
It's very scary. It makes you very vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know?
An adjustment. It's completely
an adjustment. It is very difficult, but you have to find a new reality, because you cannot be depressed the rest of your life. You have 2 options. So you smile or you don't.
And if you
smile,
thing, Natalie.
Yes,
I say it all the time. So I just want to, we're going to be wrapping up in a second, but what I do want to talk about is, I know that you talked about that you don't even take a dime of this, and that your proceeds go somewhere, right? 100% of your proceeds go to, what do they go to? So
100% of the book proceeds go to brain tumor research and or foundations. Wow. And so the first donation that I did, like all the books that I sold in the book launch, I gave those proceeds to the Connecticut Brain Tumor Alliance.
Wow.
And now I'm saving the second batch. Like I'm saving, instead of, I'm not sending $5 and $5. I'm saving and condensing them And then the next ones are going to be to the National Brain Tumor Association and so on. So I'm just like, as soon as I get a chunk that's big enough to donate, I donate 100% to,
that's wonderful.
to proceeds here in the U.S.
That's really great. I mean, because, you know, I don't think anybody would have fault you if it didn't, you know, because you could say that this can be the income to your life now, your job now, right? Because you, like you said, you know, to this day, you're still not working. I believe that's what you said,
I'm disabled.
Right? Right, and you have a little girl now, right?
Yes.
Who's like, I think 3, you said?
Yes, she's so
your
cute.
precious little baby. And you know, you probably see a lot of resilience in her. It probably takes you back to those moments, right?
I do.
Her stubbornness probably too. At 3 years
for
old,
sure.
I'm sure you're seeing some stubbornness going on there. But you know, it's really a fantastic thing that you're doing, donating this back to brain research, because I don't know why, but I just feel like I'm meeting more and more people that are having brain tumors, which is like, okay, I mean, we need to find what that is. I mean, is it our cell phones? Is it our, you know, is it all this electronics? What is it that's doing this? That I'm seeing it more, just more often than I used to. You know, it's like cancer, right? I'm seeing it in more people often more than I ever did, you know, so.
I think maybe, I know that there's no reasons for brain tumors. I haven't found the why.
Causes, of course, yeah.
I don't know much about the science, but it has to be, it feels like a newer, you know?
Yeah.
They know very well how to get us into surgery, and they know how to take us out alive.
Right.
But what happens in the middle, they don't necessarily know.
They
like,
don't.
for example,
and they don't know
what happened to me.
Exactly, and they don't know what your brain will do when you're out of it either. So that's another thing, right? But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I could talk to you forever.
Me too.
I could talk to you forever. I really, really enjoyed this a lot.
Thank you.
So don't forget, this is 8, Rediscovering Life After a Brain Tumor by Nathalie Jacob. You have to pick it up. I mean, it's on Amazon. That's where I got it. I don't know if you're on Kindle, probably. Do you have a Kindle as well?
In the Spanish version too.
Oh, and there's a Spanish version. Hello. So none of you guys are excluded, okay? So please pick up your copy. It'll be worth your time, really. Also, I went on Nathalie's blog. She has a really great blog on there, and a lot of information, and where what the book is about, and what she's doing with the proceeds. And there's great information there, and stories about her husband, who actually wrote her foreword and the last chapter of her book, which I thought was so romantic and so awesome. So please go on her website as well, and it's www.8mymemoir.com. 8mymemoir.com. Go on there, buy the book. 100% of your proceeds are going to go to a brain and tumor, right, research. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this segment. Again, this is Neena Perez at Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Until next time.